not only have you saved me messing around with the switch and the handbrake that I didn't need to mess around with, you've also probably saved my life. Hello guys, and welcome back to the Volkswizard channel, and welcome to the very first video of 2023. Hope you all had a great Christmas and New Year. Now, in the last video of 2022, I introduced to the channel my recently acquired Mk2 Golf GTI 8-valve, which I bought back from the guy I sold it to 18 long years ago. Well, the past couple of weeks have been a bit of a honeymoon period. I've just been quite happy staring at the car sitting on my driveway, but there's no getting away from the fact there are a lot of jobs to be done, some of which I knew when I bought the car, others I have discovered since. So in today's video, I'm going to give you a warts and all appraisal of this car so you can see the realities of buying a 31-year-old modern classic. Before we do that though, I need to explain that the cars have two types of faults, whether they're old or new cars. Things like mechanical and cosmetic issues are relatively easy to sort out, while missing service histories, significant accident damage and structural corrosion, well, you need a time machine to sort those out. And it's only because this car has none of the latter issues it's worth investing time and money in fixing the former issues. How much time and money? Well, let's find out. I'd just like to say a big thanks to everybody who has subscribed to the channel. We've recently hit 45,000, and in December we accumulated subscribers at a faster rate than we have in a very, very long time. So we're well on the way to 50,000 subs, which I'd say is a bit of a key watershed when it comes to YouTube channels. So if you haven't subscribed yet, then please do so. There should be an icon in the bottom right of your screen. There is a link in the description of the video below, or if you've got none of those, try and find that famous red button and click that. Okay, so we're going to split the appraisal into three sections. We're going to look at the outside of the car, the inside of the car, and then we're going to have a look under the bonnet. So let's get started then with the outside. Now, what drew me to this car is that it does seem to have largely original paintwork, but there have been areas that have been painted in the past and they haven't aged very well. The biggest issue is with the roof, where the finish is somewhat flat and there are bits where sort of bird poo has sort of eaten into the paint there as well, because it's not as durable as the original paint. There are some chips on the leading edge here as well. Actually, the sunroof panel, weirdly, is good. It's just the roof. It's never particularly good to have to paint a roof, but what makes it a little bit easier is that we've got a bit of corrosion around the wiper spindle here. Now, it tends to start on the blank over there, so it's quite rare to see it here, but then the car is 31 years old. I used to see them there within about 10 years. I don't think I've ever repaired one here, but it shouldn't be too bad. I think it's going to involve taking the motor out, probably taking the windscreen out, but the scuttle can be painted at the same time as the roof. We can go at the A-pillars here. Speaking of the A-pillars, well, these trims that turn into the roof gutters are a little bit perished in this area, and Alan supplied new ones. So when we do that, we can replace those at the same time. It's really good when things sort of work out like that. It's quite rare as well. We've also got shrunken window rubbers. So there's probably about ½ inch gap here in front of the, behind the mirror. So that needs to be sorted out. It's not particularly urgent. There is fogging to the spot lamps, so they go a bit like misty, and I think the headlights are a bit like that as well. From what I remember, all you have to do is clean them out with soapy water, so something to do on a warm day where you can get all that water out. The number plate is cracked, but it's a really nice old typeface. It's very important with an older car to have this typeface, and if you go to any number plate manufacturer, they won't give you this typeface. There are ways and means of sorting that I'll explain to you in later videos. One thing that's really bugged me is that this wheel arch trim isn't fitted properly. Now when they're fitted correctly, they do rub into the paint, so there is a line here you can see, and then there's probably about 4 to 5 millimeters beyond that where the arch should be much further up. Alan said that because he was going to replace this with new parts, he didn't bother putting it on properly, and he has supplied me with 4 new wheel arch trims, but I think I need to sort that out a bit sooner before I kind of go to the full extent of a thorough sort of inspection and start replacing all these bits of plastic. So I can do that. The problem with these is that the leading edge of the wing in particular does corrode because mud builds up in this area. And actually somebody asked me on Instagram, are is there any particular year that's worse for corrosion? And it's only then that I realised that on a big bumper car there is no front valance. On a small bumper car there is a solid metal panel that closes this gap here. On these you've only got the bumper, so take the bumper off and it's just completely open under the grille. You can see the sump and the block. And because of that, I'm pretty convinced that mud accumulates much more readily in this area. So you do find a lot of big bumper cars are not very, the wheel arch trims are not very secure at the leading edge of the wing. Something that really bugs me is when the caps for the wheel nuts are missing. This one's got 4, but this one's not the right type. It's off a Mk2 Golf, so that's relatively easy to sort. The wheels are actually in great condition. They were refurbished by Prestige Wheel Centre. The jacking point here, this is a big bumper thing. They've got little plastic sort of clips that push into the sill. It'll go in, but it won't really stay in, so that needs to be sorted out. But Alan has got a brand new sill cover, and I think it might be this one because this one's scratched, and it comes with new jacking points covers, so it's easy to fix. This side of the car is actually really good. There is a spot of rust here just underneath the line of the roof gutter. It doesn't look like it's grown an awful lot recently, and Alan actually said that was there when he bought the car back in 2004 when it was 13 years old. So that's something to attend to at some point, but it's not particularly urgent. Maybe a really good painter would just be able to paint this small section between the window and the roof gutter. Now at the back we've got some peeling to the black decal around the rear window. I mentioned that in the original video, and Alan has definitely supplied a new decal, so that will get fitted when the car goes into the body shop for the paintwork. It's best left to somebody who knows what they're doing. We've got a crack right across the rear number plate where the screw hole is. That's held together with duct tape. As I said, new number plates are on the way. What's not as easy to notice is a subtle dent in the centre of the back bumper. Now I stopped selling Mk2s about 10 years ago because I just couldn't get the parts, and quite a few had scuffs on the bumpers because that's what happens with cars, but you can't just repaint them like you would a modern car because it's this sort of textured plastic. So I just gave up, and the reason I liked this car was because it didn't have any scuffs or scrapes, but it does have a subtle sort of concaveness to it about here. But this isn't too bad because a bit of heat and it should be easy to restore that. You can't say that about scuffs and scrapes. They're much harder to fix. So I can fix that when I take the bumper off and take the inner iron off. It should be easy to get a heat gun on there and make it flat again. There is a bit of crazing to the paintwork on the rear panel, so I'd suggest that's been painted before. Again, that can be done when the car goes in. Actually, the tailgate's not too bad, but having said that, there is a little bit of damage there. The exhaust, well, I think I've decided it's too loud, so the original will go on. It's sitting a bit too low as well, but it seems to be pretty solid, so it's not going to be pretty easy to fix that. So I think that'll be left until we put the original exhaust back on. Right, now let's have a look at the inside. In here, it's surprisingly good and a real testament to the way in which these cars were constructed. For example, this driver's seat has definitely done at least 115,000 miles over many thousands of hours, and it exhibits barely any more wear than the lightly used passenger seat. All the bolsters are still rock solid, and I can see no signs it's been repaired in the past. The only real clue to this car's mileage is the steering wheel rim. When they're new, they have loads of lovely texture to them, and as the cars get used, they get smoother and smoother. We've still got some texture left in the most used area up here. Some cars, when they've done really high mileages, can go completely smooth, and in really, really high mileage examples, you can actually wear right through the black outer finish. One area that doesn't wear too well in the Mk2 Golf is the headlining. You'd think it would stay out of trouble up there, but they don't. It's not unusual for the headline to start sagging at the back. I've seen them held up with drawing pins in the past, but the only real solution is to take the headlining out and give it to a trimmer to retrim it. It's actually one of the jobs that Alan's done during his 18 years with the car, and whoever did it has done a really nice job. They've used an Alcantara type fabric, which you can put lines in with your fingers, and they've done the sunroof panel, the sun visors, and even the little panel with the sunroof crank handle. So that does actually make this interior a lot nicer than it was originally. We've also got some cigarette burns on the back seats. You can't blame the car for those. They're a bit of a mystery because I don't think Alan smokes, and I don't remember them being there when I sold him the car. Unfortunately, they're in the coloured section, which is much harder to repair. The outer bit and the middle bit is just a grey hop sack fabric like this. So yes, you could probably get it repaired, but it probably wouldn't be perfect. I think the ideal solution for me is to keep scouring eBay for a cheap set of seats. It doesn't really matter what condition the fronts are in, and get a good rear bench. I'll probably get some money back as well when I sell off the set with my damaged back seat, because this is quite handy fabric for repairing these. Yes, some people, believe it or not, can actually wear through this fabric if they try hard enough. Also on the back of the back seats there's a black panel, and that's a bit scuffed from stuff in the boot moving around, so that's another thing to fix in the future. Much more urgent though with the functional issues with this interior. As I mentioned in the original video, the handbrake switch is not working properly, so the light on the dashboard doesn't extinguish when the handbrake is off, and that's really annoying. It's solidly on now. As the car warms up it sort of starts to flicker, and maybe eventually it would turn off, but whatever, it needs to be sorted. Some people have said it's a sign of the brake fluid being low, but yeah, I haven't checked that, so it could be, but I don't think it's a problem. And why would it vary as you start driving? Maybe it warms up. I'll check that as well though, but I think it's probably the switch. But before I start stripping this down, I'll have a quick look under the bonnet. We'll do that in a second. Anyway, the other functional issue is with the heater blower motor. So we have top speed, number 3, but we don't have 1 and 2. That's because to slow the fan down, the voltage goes through a resistor, and when the motor is drawing too much current, it blows a thermal fuse on the resistor pack. They're really cheap to buy from places like RS Components. I was fixing them sort of 20 years ago. You just need to make sure you've got the same thermal fuse, because as we know with Vauxhall Zefiras, blow motors can cause cars to catch fire if they overheat, so you just need to be very, very careful with that one. And finally, it works, but I really don't like it. We've got this sort of stereo from the 2000s, was it silver panel from JVC. I can understand why people upgrade, because originally this car had a radio cassette player. They wanted a CD player. It fits in, it probably uses the same connectors, but it looks really wrong. And there is a very easy solution to this. It's not cheap, but I have just ordered a Blaupunkt Bremen DAB. Now, Blaupunkt Bremen was an original stereo from the 1990s, late 80s, and the DAB version looks identical, but you can plug a phone into it with a USB socket and you can connect via Bluetooth. So I'm looking forward to that arriving. There'll be a full install video on that in due course. Now, let's have a look under the bonnet. Now in here, it's much like the interior. We have a mixture of cosmetic and functional issues to deal with. The biggest cosmetic issue is the rusty rocker cover. It should be a shiny black. They were pretty inexpensive to buy brand new back in the day. I haven't checked availability or price right now, but if it's not affordable or available, you can just have it powder coated, but you do need to be really, really careful. There was a story about 25 years ago about a chap with a concourse condition Mk2 Golf GTI. His finishing touch to the engine bay was to powder coat the rocker cover, but what he didn't realise was that there was still some powder loose in the rocker cover behind the gauze for the breather. So when he started the engine, that blocked all the oil ways, and he needed a new engine. So it might be cheaper, whatever the price, to just replace it. There's quite a big oil leak on the oil cooler, which I mentioned in the first video. I just need to clean it off and see which of the 2 oil pressure switches is leaking. Probably a few pounds to do, and quite easy to do as well. I want to replace all the service parts, so air filter, spark plugs, oil filter, fuel filter at the back of the car, just for peace of mind. Likewise with the cam belt. There was no official schedule for these. I've never really heard of them breaking, but the cars are now 31 years old and rubber doesn't last forever. So I'll go through the history with Stealth Racing, see if they did it recently. If not, I'll do it again. Likewise, the power steering belt and the alternator V-belt. In the first video, I think I kind of hinted that I found the ride a bit hard because of the Coney top adjustables, but I hadn't seen where they had been set. Well, I got the little tool out and adjusted them and found out they're actually on full stiffness. So I've wound them all the way back. I haven't test driven it since, but it should be a little bit more comfortable now. Interestingly, the brake fluid was quite low. I haven't actually topped it up yet, but a guy on YouTube, thanks whoever you were suggested the warning light might relate to low fluid, and lo and behold, it's about an inch lower than where it should be. So that could be quite a cheap and easy fix. Where the brake fluid has gone though is maybe a bit of a worry, but I'll top it up and see if it comes down. Again, I'll keep a close eye on that, of course. Now today is Wednesday. On Sunday the car is due at Bicester Heritage for their scramble event. Thanks to the guys at Historic, the car storage place there at Bicester Heritage, I'm actually in the main event, so the car will actually be on display, and I need to sort some things out before then, which I'm going to show you in the video now. Firstly, I want to polish the roof to make it look better. It looks pretty bad now, but I think a good hard polish might bring back some of the shine. I need to take that wheel arch trim off and see how much wing is left to rivet it back onto, but it's got to sit better than that. That looks pretty terrible. And also I want to get the blower motor out and have a look at the fuse on it and order a new one. So let's get my overalls on and get cracking. Okay, we're going to start off with the job that I like the least, and that's to polish the roof. We're using a very harsh 3M compound to bring back some of the shine, take some of the marks out of it. It's not a lesson in polishing a car, this. We don't really have to worry about holograms because you can't really see them on a roof, and we don't have to worry if we go through the paint. It's really a kill or cure because it's going to get painted anyway. A bit of bad news on two counts. Firstly, the polishing doesn't seem to be making much difference because the paint's that bad, and secondly, my Dodo Juice Spin Doctor polisher I've had for must be 10 years now is making a funny noise. I think it's knackered internally, it's just slipping, so it'll spin, but you put any load on it and it just stops and makes a really bad noise. So I haven't used this for since I moved here, so about 8 months. So it just shows you these things don't like not being used. So maybe I'll be able to fix it, but I'm just going to get the polish off now and it'll just have to be as good as it is. Right, next up, let's go and have a look at that offside front wheel arch trim. Okay, I've got the offside front corner in the air. I've got the trolley jack on the jacking point. That's not actually the sill, it's a round sort of dome that's set a bit further in, and quite often they're rusty or pushed in. On this car it's actually pretty solid, so that's a good sign for the car, but also makes this job a lot easier. Now this car's actually got lock-in wheel bolts, but they are a bit unnecessary on this kind of car. I know the wheels are gorgeous and they probably fetch quite a good price on eBay, but I'm not really too worried. I really don't like lock-in wheel bolts. So luckily in the glove box we've got actually 6 original bolts. That's a bit weird, and the lock-in wheel bolt key. So as I take this out, I'm gonna fit it with a normal bolt. Okay, but anyway, let's get the wheel off and have a look at the arch. Oh, so light. Okay, right, tiny little 239mm disc. I think it's quite straightforward to upgrade these to 256s, so that's something for the future. Lovely yellow conies there. Right, so the wheel arch trims are pop riveted in place, and they should have black heads. So if you're looking at a Mark II, check out the rivets are all there. I don't think there are any here, so I'm a bit unsure as to what's holding it on. Not a lot there. There should be a little screw there, which is actually there, and a clip for the moulding. Right, so that clip's come out okay. It's just that screw there. Okay, stubby screwdriver, because I haven't got much clearance. And there it is. That is actually the correct screw for the job, and I'd say that's probably quite a rare thing, so that's what it should have. Now it should come off. Yep. Okay, now the problem with this arch trim is that a lot of the rivet holes have been broken, so there's still a couple that still work. It might work, and the rivet will push it all together. So let's have a look. I'm actually really impressed with this wing. We've still got metal here, so shouldn't be any problem attaching the arch to it. The reason why it wasn't sitting well is because somebody's attached the arch with like double-sided Velcro. As I said, it was a temporary job, so yeah, we need to drill the old rivet heads out because they're still in there. I wasn't expecting that. Okay, I've drilled the head off, the one rivet that's still complete. The rest of the rivets have just left their sort of shaft bit into the wing, so they just need easing out with a hammer and chisel, carefully, not to damage the wing. Okay, 2 more to go. Now this one at the front is an important one because this area is normally quite rusty and banging it out might damage it. You can try and drill it out if you want to be a little bit more gentle. Okay, before refitting the arch trim, I've sprayed some ACF 50 into sort of the crevices to protect it. I'm going to strip this all down again at some point in the summer, but I just want it to get through the winter, and this is like a anti-corrosion sort of spray, and it gets into where I can't get with my fingers. Where I can get with my fingers, I've just put some thick grease on the wheel arch lip and around the rivet holes just to stop it rusting. I mean, it's done incredibly well, particularly down the front there. Okay, so then we need to line up the arch trim. At the front there is a hole that locates with a peg sticking out the back of the front spoiler, and this little tab goes under the front bumper mounting, so in there, so you have to line those two up, and then the rest should follow. Okay, so that's in, and then the peg's in. Just check that's lined up correctly. Okay, and then that tab goes behind the jacking point there, and that's in place. Now hopefully my rivet gun, a Draper one, must be 20 years old, will be more reliable than my polisher. So you put the rivet in like that, and just, yeah, it makes your hand really hurt when it sort of bangs it into place, as you'll see. The important thing is to push the arch trim as far up as you can. Otherwise you'll see the line that it's rubbed into the wing for all those 31 years of sort of flexing a bit. So that's in place, and then we've got 5 rivets, one in the middle. Oh, see, that's quite a violent thing where it breaks the rivet off. And even though that tab on the wheel arch trim was broken, because there's so much rivet head, it's actually held it on okay. Yay, okay, just need to put that little screw back in. Right, done. Oh yeah, push the little clip back in and perfect. I was really worried about this because I thought the reason it was insecure at the front of it was because there isn't much wing left. That's not an unusual situation, but to have all rivets in there solidly is brilliant. And I've even got new ones of these to go on as well, so yeah, it's going to be worth fitting them now, and there shouldn't be too much prep work under there. I might give it a good clean, you know, and polish and stuff, but yeah, this looks infinitely better. And now, because the peg from the front spoiler is securely located, that all sits a lot better as well. Brilliant. Right, now onto the heater blower motor. Okay, now I haven't done one of these for a very, very long time, but I think I remember how to do it. We'll find out. I'm not going to edit this bit. Let's see how quickly it is to get the blower motor out. There we go. That's pretty quick, isn't it? Okay, well, sorry, it's getting dark now. This is the heater blower motor. You can see it's stamped 37th week of 1990. The silver plate is a resistor pack. And just get off. I think you can do it with your fingers. Don't you just love old cars? No tools are required. Just unclip the power connection. They've got lovely little tabs on them. And that's the resistor pack. The green bit is a resistor. The little tube, little cone in there is the thermal fuse. So I've had a close look at this and it's actually 184 degrees. So just go on eBay, look for 184 degrees, non-resettable thermal fuse, get the crimps because you can't solder it in place, and it shouldn't take too long to repair that. I think you can buy these from somewhere complete, but this is a nice genuine original part. There's nothing wrong with the actual main bit, the resistor, it's just that fuse. So I'd rather keep this and buy one of those. But if you don't fancy doing it, just buy one of those. I've got to put it all back together for scramble. I don't think I'm going to get the part in time, even if I order it now, because I'd rather it works on one speed than no speed, because this car does mist up quite a lot because it's not used very often. Now, in the meantime, I haven't filmed it, but I have topped up the brake fluid. If you remember, some person said that the light on the dash may not be the handbrake switch, it may be the brake fluid, and that's actually quite interesting because as it warmed up, it got better, and I think maybe the brake fluid got expanded and that the level went up a bit. But anyway, I've never seen that light off. So let's turn the ignition on. It's on now. Handbrake off. It's in gear, so it won't roll back. It's off. Amazing. So not only have you saved me messing around with the switch and the handbrake that I didn't need to mess around with, you've also probably saved my life because I didn't know that was indicative of brake fluid being low. Every day is a school day. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the car's going to Bicester Scramble on Sunday. If you're there, come and say hello if you see the car or you see me. I should be parked at the back towards Histories, somewhere around there by the car park. So, and I don't think there are many Mark IIs there. I don't think I've seen one before. I think I've seen the G60 that was lovely, but I've never seen a normal Mk2 Golf GTI, so it should be quite distinctive. So yeah, come and say hello. As ever, keep subscribing, keep commenting, keep an eye out for more videos on this car. If it remains popular on the channel, it's going to be around for a very long time. We might have a special trip for it planned as well in May, but that's all still up in the air. The next video on this car at least will be on the installation of the super Blaupunkt Bremen, which I can't wait to fit. I might even do that before we go to Scramble because it would look a lot cooler than this. As ever guys, thanks for watching and see you for the next one very soon.